Answer is yes. But I think that as I reflected on this over the last couple of hours, um, I think we need to really, really think long and hard about this and give LeBron credit where credit is due without taking any credit away from Steph Curry. LeBron James is an all-time great, Mount Rushmore basketball, universally recognized as a top three player in the history of the game, arguably one in some people's eyes, number two in others like me. But when you talk about him overshadowing Steph Curry, Kendrick Perkins, Molly, it's not just because of basketball. It's because of who LeBron James has purported himself to be off the court. You would stop shy of calling him an activist, but he has been somebody that particularly in recent memory has been willing to carry that baton and to take on issues and to really attack them with fervor. That is not to say that Steph Curry hasn't given a voice to the voiceless in his own way and hasn't tried to as well, because he has certainly been willing to speak out on a lot of different things. But LeBron's voice has clearly been more profound in that regard. I hearken back to Patrick Beverley and what Patrick Beverley said during the bubble. And he said, let's all stop this nonsense. LeBron's going to decide what we're going to do. If LeBron playing in the bubble, we all playing in the bubble. That's what he was basically saying, okay? And everybody understood exactly where he was coming from. As LeBron went, so did the league. It wasn't just because of his greatness, his unparalleled greatness and with unquestionable greatness. It was because of the fact that he was willing to stand up and speak out. Think back to when Cleveland played Golden State the year that Golden State won, but Cleveland was up 2-1 with Matthew Dellavedova as the second best player at the time because Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love had gotten hurt. One of the most memorable scenes was when LeBron James saw the great Jim Brown, who obviously was an elite sports athlete and activist in his own right. And LeBron looked over to him and bowed and paid homage to him. We all remembered that. That was all a very touching moment. Anybody that's black that saw that, it moved us because he was paying homage to that. And what I would say to Steve Kerr is that Steve Kerr has to realize Steve Kerr personifies that himself. Steve Kerr is a four-time champion. He's been to 6 NBA finals, okay? As far as I'm concerned, he's established himself as one of the top 5-6 coaches of all time. But you know one of the other reasons we think about Steve Kerr all the time? Because of how passionate he is on certain issues. It's gun control, it's violence in the streets, it's activism, it's racism, it's gun control, it's gun violence, it's all of these different things, calling out politicians by name, talking about the kind of stuff that they need to do. It's profound and as outspoken as Greg Popovich gets. We still look at Steve Kerr and defer to him to some degree when it comes to stuff like that. He's not just a coach. He's not just a coach. He's a conscientious observer who cares about the betterment of our society. LeBron James has personified that, and he's done it more so than any modern-day athlete. And because of that is why it's kind of overshadowed Steph, because we don't just look at our athletes and just talk about their game. We look at them and we talk about them and all that they bring, no matter where they go. And when it comes to LeBron James, it's done to no one more than that is done with him.
You know what they say is I can't disagree with you with that. Matter of fact, I feel like you're 100% right to that aspect. But when I think about just in between the lines, I think LeBron James played a small part of it, but I think it's others that play a major part into it as well. Because when we think about basketball players, right, when you think about a basketball player, just thinking out loud, you think, oh, tall, athletic, length. You know, you thinking guys that are 7 foot. Matter of fact, when you was getting drafted, guys want to draft 6'9", 6'10" guys. And I think because of the evolution of what we have witnessed far as guys like a Jason Tatum that's 6'10" on the perimeter, that's dancing with the rock, that's able to pull back and do step backs and hezzy pull-ups. When we think about a guy like Kevin Durant that's 7 foot, arguably the greatest scorer of all time to play the game on the perimeter at 7 foot. When we think about how Joel Embiid and Jokic has basically changed the game from the center position. They're not your traditional center, what those guys are capable of doing. Hell, when we think about Giannis at 7 foot, the things that he's capable of doing, a guy that we've never seen before, not your traditional power forward. And so when we see all these guys that are 6'9" and 7 foot, we get amazed, and rightfully so, because they have changed the game in their own right as well. But they are also guys that are also able to fill up the box, the box score in other categories, meaning they're able to go out there and get you 10 rebounds and 8 or 9 assists. And I think we fall victim to that because we're so used to guys in this age of scoring points that we forget that Steph Curry is dominant in his own right by just being able to score the way that he do, being on the floor and being a decoy aspects, being able to open up shots for others. So when I think about overshadowing, yes, LeBron plays a small part in it, but I think it's the league overall that's overshadowing Steph Curry because of his size and because he don't fill up the box score like others do.
Interesting. I'm going to leave it there, guys, because I want to make sure we have time for this next topic. Coming up, Lakers fans wave goodbye to John Morant and the Grizzlies. After a Game 6 blowout, you do not want to miss why Stephen A. says Memphis looks awful right now.
He was a first ballot Hall of Famer.
For sure.
Today, he's one of the 10 greatest players of all time. And I don't think that's overstating the impact of what the last 2 years have done. That said, as we continue to debate that, he goes on. And now we get it at least one more time in our lives, something that I don't think any of us, well, we certainly weren't assured we would ever see again after they met in the finals 4 straight years. We get Steph Curry versus LeBron James starting tomorrow. The Warriors have home court advantage. It's a 6-7 matchup, but it feels like Ali Frazier. Talk to me, Monica. Give me the thumbnail on the series.
Oh, all right. Immediate thumbnail. The Warriors continue to improve game by game in their series versus the Kings outside of Game 6, which we'll just call an outlier because they have bad spacing. I think this Warriors team, similar to the Lakers, is not the team that we saw over the course of the regular season. Gary Payton II, Andrew Wiggins have been huge contributions or additions back into this roster. They are playing with continuity. They are playing with tremendous experience and momentum coming into the series. On the other side, I said that Anthony Davis was the key to that Memphis Grizzlies series. I think the same sort of mentality could potentially apply, but across the board, the Lakers are going to have to rise to the challenge of defending this Warriors' potent offense. Now, as gaudy and privileged and talented as Steph Curry is, there is LeBron James on the other side, and I think his sheer will is going to make this series particularly interesting, but I just wonder about the collective experience if I had to find something to separate the two of these teams, and that advantage goes to the Warriors camp.
What's the biggest difference? Again, Steph and LeBron, the historical rivals, we could talk about that forever, Legs, but what is the biggest difference in this series as it begins tomorrow night?
I think for me, look, defensively, it's going to be an issue for the Lakers. There's no doubt, because I just don't think they've necessarily got the personnel on the perimeter to deal with what you have to with Golden State, off the basketball, where your head has to be on a swivel, and the amount of runs you have to stop, because it's one thing to go on a 10-0 run against Golden State. Like, at no point are they going to be fazed by any situation they find themselves in. You saw what happened with Memphis, particularly in that last game. Once things started to get a little bit sideways, they completely collapsed. That's not going to happen with the Warriors. No matter what their situation they find themselves in, you've got to continue to concentrate for 48 minutes defensively against them. Very few teams have the personnel, the scheme, the game plan to do that, and I don't necessarily think the Lakers do. Having said all of it, if Anthony Davis is the best player in this series, the Lakers have a legitimate shot to win it. So I agree with Monica. He is the key because he is that unique. He's got to be more consistent than he was in the last round to give the Lakers a shot.
That's such a good point. Let's bookmark that and come back to it later in this hour. Because for all the talk about LeBron and all the talk about Steph, the one whose legacy might actually be rewritten in the next 2 weeks is Anthony Davis if he carries the Lakers through this. We'll talk about it much more as we continue. In the meantime, it is time for your morning wake-up call. The best team in hockey history, the Boston Bruins, an overtime shocker.